Hey guys, welcome back to the Jay's Fit Down podcast. I'm your host, Jaden. Though we've taken a brief hiatus, but we're back here with the show, guys, and we're going to have more shows coming for you in the next couple of days, next couple of weeks, as we're inching towards, the NFL offseason, really, well, free agency, really officially. The combines been going on the past couple of days. We had the quarterbacks, of course, all the skill positions, the receivers, defensive linemen, offensive linemen, all that stuff. I'm gonna be honest with you guys, like with the combine, like I've never been like a big fan, like or I would say fan of like a big, you know, person with the combine as far as like tying that to guys' success. Like, of course, you want to see the measurables, like like 40-yard dash and all these things. Like, just you because you want to get a good look at guys' speed and their agility, of course, catching passes, the quarterbacks throwing, even though they can do all those things at their pro day at their respective schools. Um, you want to look at the broad jump, you want to look at the three cone drills and all these things, right? It's these scouts, these teams, these head coaches, presidents, general managers, all they're here, they're there at the combine, I mean, like I get it, like you're just these are all potential players that you're looking at in the draft that you may want to draft. Just you're looking at all these prospects. But as far as my opinion, though, I don't think it's like a huge thing. Um, to me. To me, it's like I don't think it translates all the time to the NFL. You look at John Ross; he had one of the best 40 times ever. One of the fastest players to come into the draft, and he fizzled out fairly quickly in the NFL after a couple years. He went to the Bengals and had like one season with the Giants, I think. I mean, but he other than that, he hadn't done much. He didn't really do much in the NFL, and so, I mean, then that's not to say it's all on him. I mean, you have organizational problems as well with these teams, but just goes to show you that sometimes, like, a guy is just not always going to translate. Their combine, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, those things are, those are your running drills. You're doing these things, but you're not going game speed with full pads on, everything, like, the game's 100 miles an hour and you're not playing in elements, do all these things, like having to read defenses. Um, all these things like having to rush the quarterback. Like, so that's just my whole thoughts on the combine. But that's not what this podcast is about necessarily today. Today I wanted to talk about Tua Tagovailoa and what is next for the Miami Dolphins quarterback. So with Tua, he signed 4-year, $212 million contract extension with the Dolphins some time ago. Of course, last year, 20 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Not the best year for Tua. Um, just didn't play that well last year. He got he first went to Miami in the 2020 draft, as we all know, and then he had a couple of decent years, 2022, 2023 under Mike McDaniel when he first got there. But other than that, Tua just hasn't been the guy in the NFL that everybody thought he would be, that quarterback that that he was thought to be. And um I don't know. I think to me, Miami is better off moving on from him. I think Tua is a guy, especially with all the injuries that he's had, the concussions and all these things. You can't have a guy like that sitting on, in your locker room and on your bench, like because it's a risk. I mean, especially like he struggled in the intermediate to the intermediate level of the field, short level of the field to deep level of the field as well at times. Like, and Tyreek Hill being injured didn't help, but just the Dolphins just were a mess. And they fired Mike McDaniel. He goes and now he's the offensive coordinator for the Chargers. Tua, more likely than not, is going to be on another team here probably in the next couple weeks. And when free agency opens up, if a team wants to take if Miami releases him, um, by that point, or they might wait until the summer to do it, or they might trade him, which trading probably seems like the more likely option. And to me, I think Tua. I don't know. To me, Tua's not a starting NFL quarterback. He isn't. I don't believe he is. Listen. I'm an Alabama fan, and I love Tua when he was at Alabama, but I just don't think he's translated completely to the NFL level. I don't think he's just an NFL guy, at least a starter. But he might benefit on a team like maybe the Steelers, or maybe a team like the Browns. Like I could see him going to those types of teams, like like where like him his struggles aren't going to be completely as far his struggles in passing the football aren't going to be completely exposed due to how the Browns, at least now under Todd Monken, and how the Pittsburgh Steelers would run their offense. And it's, like I don't think it would be a huge trouble. At least, if you have a solid running game to back it up, which the Steelers didn't really have, and which the Browns didn't really have much of either. Um, so that's kind of my whole take on Tua Tagovailoa. I don't know. I think quarterback is a position in the NFL that you have to have. It has to be successful. You got to have it. You got to have consistency at the position. You got to have guys who are going to get out there and they're going to be that they are able to control the game, read the defense. Be able to throw the football, obviously, in all levels of the field, but at the same time, be able to take control. Of the locker room as well, and be the team leader, showing that through their body language, all those things, and just how they show up every day, to work, and just because other guys look at that, the quarterback is you as your leader, the face of the team, face of the franchise. So um they're the guys that everybody's looking up to, and I just think the Dolphins struggled a lot with that last year with locker room chemistry, and I think that was the issue, and I think Tua had a part to play with it. I think Tyreek Hill had a part to play with it. Both those guys no longer in Miami, or at least both of them will not be on the Miami Dolphins roster next year. Um, so that's my thoughts, man. I don't know. I think Tua is a good guy. I really do. I just don't believe he's a starting quarterback in the NFL anymore. Like I think you're smart to not start him. Um, just because he struggled. He's just struggled immensely, especially with the concussions, with the injuries, and just with not being able to play consistently in all three levels of the passing field. Um, so I mean. But that's not to say he would not fit in certain teams and certain offenses. I don't think yeah, like I said, the Steelers I can see being a fit. The Browns I can see being a fit. I mean, people have even linked him to the Falcons, which I don't, as a Falcons fan, I don't particularly want that either. I would not prefer Tua to be here, but the Falcons do need a quarterback just to kind of hold down the fort while Michael Penix heals from his injury. But I don't believe Tua necessarily has to be that player, but we're talking about that on another podcast. But for right now, I just think that, I mean, you know, it's just one of those things, man. It's weird, like. I mean, Tua is maybe if you can keep him upright, keep him in the pocket, keep him healthy, he'll be a decent quarterback. Maybe that's the case. Maybe like you give him good protection, good offensive line. Just have him throw an intermediate, short to intermediate part of the field, not nothing, not the deep part of the field often all the time. Then he'll probably be a decent quarterback. I mean, he did have a few good years, like I said, under Mike McDaniel when they first got there. A lot of that was a quick passing game. They did throw it deep at times to Tyreek Hill, but it was more so just Tua threw it to a certain distance, and Tyreek kind of had to run under it, or like he had to wait on the ball. But so I just think that that's where we are at right now with Tua Tagovailoa at this point, in his career. He just isn't a starter anymore. And I think once he accepts that, and once you know the rest of the NFL accept it, then it will be easier for him to find his next gig. Um, and once I mean, because he's going to have to be okay with being a backup somewhere. I just don't see him starting anywhere. Like realistically speaking, I don't see it. Like again, other than those two teams that I mentioned there, but or you can even throw in the Jets. I mean, that's a possibility as well. Um, Justin Fields more likely than not is not going to be the quarterback for them next year. They need a quarterback. The Arizona Cardinals need a quarterback because Kyler Murray is most likely going to leave. Um, I mean, yeah. So, and he's kind of the same story. It's like there's just some guys that just aren't starters in the NFL anymore. They're just not, they're just not that they're not that guy. Not to say they're not bad players, or not to say that they're bad players, but they just reached a point in their careers where they they would thrive better in a backup situation, as opposed to being a starter, being relied upon so heavily in the offense and offensive system for it to be successful. It's just not going to work when you have with guys like Tua and with guys like um Kyler Murray. So yeah, that's kind of like what I wanted to get on the podcast to talk about today. It's like I said, free agency opens up in a couple weeks, so we're going to see a lot more moving around. I mean, David Montgomery got traded to the Texans today from the Lions, so that was something. First, like, real trade of the offseason. Um, so that was interesting to see. I mean, and I figure like the Lions probably would move on for him at some point. He hadn't been getting like as much carries with Jahmyr Gibbs kind of emerging. They had that two-headed like monster backfield, Sonic and Knuckles, right? They were good, but I feel like Gibbs started to kind of like take away like the carries as time went on from Montgomery. And I think David Montgomery just didn't really like that. He's like, hey, you know what? Like I want to go somewhere else where I know I'm going to be used. And be able to provide a spark to the running game. And the Texans sorely needed that this past season. I think that probably would have helped them, especially in the playoffs. Like I think if they had a solid running game, that they would have been able to probably move on further than what they did. But that being said, that kind of wraps up my podcast here today, guys. Again, sorry for the hiatus. Been just um, handling some things and all that. But we're back here on Jace Fifth Down. Hope to see you guys. Please just hit that subscribe button. Follow us on the socials on TikTok and Instagram at Jace Fifth Down Pod. We would really appreciate it. Uh, yeah, we'll see you next time on the show. Please stay safe. Um, and yeah, we will talk to you guys on the next episode.